1-1 in the ninth. 2 outs, nobody on. This is a 2-strike pitch. Golf down to right field. In comes Welbas. He was deep, and he makes a diving catch. Ryan Welbas laying out, stealing the base hit from Nelson Quiros, and ending the top of the ninth.
Hit high in the air, deep to center field. Locastro, track, wall, you can tell it goodbye. Jordan Beck, a 2-run homer. And the Isotopes now trail by just a run. It is 16-15.
I'm Jesse Goldberg-Strassler. This is Crafting the Call. And there you see some differences between Midwest League Baseball and Pacific Coast League Baseball.
And I'm Josh Suchon. Welcome to this week's episode of checking in on the early season so far, Jesse. Low-scoring games in the Midwest League, high-scoring games in the Pacific Coast League, but also for play-by-play announcers like you and I. We're a week or two into the season. How are things going so far? How are our voices so far? How is the technology so far?
Things in Lansing are wet. As we record this, it is raining. We'll see if there's going to be any double headers. In general, postponements, double headers are the order of the day in the Midwest League, but there's all sorts that goes into it. And so this is a mini episode. Josh and I just checking in, looking back on what we've done and checking in the early part of the year. I can tell you, Josh, that the start of my year is the hardest because opening day, in fact, our unofficial opening day and exhibition against Michigan State, and then our official home opener, both of those days I have to set 3:30 alarms. So that way I get to the ballpark at 4:30 to make sure that TV is ready to do their live remotes. And then you and I both know how late we stay after a game ends. So if I can get through the start of the season, if I can survive it, then it gets easier for me. How about you?
I feel like one of the biggest challenges for me is finding time to get ready for the baseball game because I do sales in the off season. And so I'm working with my clients on making sure that their advertisements are up and just making sure that everything is ready. And I'm involved in our Jackie Robinson Day celebration. And so working on making sure like all of those things are ready to go. And that's life in the minor leagues. You wear a lot of hats. You rarely just broadcast baseball games. And I feel like I'm never 100% as confident going into a broadcast as I would like to be. And I hate that because this is why we're doing this. But at the same time, this is the reality of the situation. So sometimes it means you wake up at 3:30 in the morning, and sometimes it means you stay up super late. Sometimes you have to do both those things. But I also think that there's a lesson here, Jesse, because we always want to be as prepared as we can possibly be. And I'm not going to make this seem like it's okay to shortchange your preparation. But I do think that sometimes it's okay to just, this is the game. I'm just going to focus on what's happening there because that should always come first rather than having every single piece of biographical information to do a book report about every single player on the field.
What helped me was my first number one position that I was hired for, the Windy City Thunderbolts Frontier League. I was hired a week before the season began. So I'm calling games, and I don't know any of our guys, let alone any of the opposition. I was calling the game with a roster as my background material. So I could tell you, this guy bats right, or he stands this tall. He's from this hometown, hopefully if the hometown was correct on the roster. And I would work to try to confirm that. So it does become visual. It becomes, what does he look like when he steps in from the right side? What does this pitcher look like as he toes the rubber? And what are things that I can see, that I can describe? It really does just boil things down to the essence of what's happening on the field before you.
So this is now the third season of what I call the strict enforcement of the pitch timer, because the pitch timer began in 2015, but the strict enforcement of it began a couple of years ago. And I continue to be surprised at the difference in it. The game that we saw at the start there, 16-15, it was still only 3 hours and 12 minutes. That's a game that used to be 4.5 hours in the Pacific Coast League. I'm curious, Jesse, how you have altered your broadcast. And even now that we've been settling into this for a couple of years, how that's impacting just your rhythm and your flow of a game.
The prep is different. The storytelling is different, because what would happen before is over the course of one at bat, let's say the at bat goes to 2 balls and 2 strikes. that is lasting for minutes. And so I'm trying to figure out ways that I can fill the time. There's a pitcher on the mound who's refusing to throw the ball. I need to be talking about something. That's the way that I see it is the baseball game can carry the entertainment, or it's up to me to carry the entertainment. And if the game slows to a grind, this is not going to be fun to listen to, fun to watch, unless I put in the work. Well, with the pitch timer, suddenly, if I'm talking too much, if I'm getting in the way of the baseball, that's interfering with someone's enjoyment. So it really is upon me to understand what does the game need right here and to either supply it or get out of the way.
Glad you said that, because I feel the same way. I find myself, number one, telling fewer stories, but I also find myself realizing that when I do tell a story, I need to tell the story in a much different way. I basically have 6 to 8 seconds between pitches. I know that the timer is 15 to 18, depending on whether there's runners on base, but the reality of how many words you want to get in, I know there's a couple of times that I felt frustrated. I'm trying to tell the story. I can't get the words out. The pitch is delivered. The ball is put in play. And then I just remind myself, your story doesn't matter as much as what's happening in the game matters, or looking for a different place to tell that story. Pitching coach goes out to the mound. Now's my time to tell that story. But still, you don't want to rush it and talk so fast that people can't understand what you're saying. So just really think about what are the most important elements of this story, and don't force it. Just tell it when it's natural.
I've taken lessons from basketball, because with basketball, I really enjoy whenever someone can slide in. They're from here. They're part of triplets, any of those little things. But you just don't have that time. So it's when someone goes to the free throw line that you can insert that. When a substitute comes into the game, you can name that. When someone is slowly dribbling the ball up the court, but you can't interfere with the action. And it's that same sort of thing where everything shortens. And suddenly I need to say one sentence less than what I want to say. So you just have to slide it in there and keep on moving.
How about your voice? My voice has not been good for about a month, and I'm getting frustrated by it. A little bit self-conscious. I'm trying to just understand the big picture. But how does your voice, especially cold days early in the season, very windy days, I can feel my nasally coming out right now. How's your voice, Jesse?
In the highlight, you could probably hear some nasality. I've got my tissues. I would say that your job is harder than my job, because you're working as a one-person broadcast team. I've got a second. I've got a partner. And my job, we've got, a couple of runs to call each game. And the games are generally lasting so much shorter. And you've got 31 or thereabouts. So you are really being strained in all of the action. But I would argue the start of the year is when I have to develop my vocal stamina, because I'm not practicing to talk for 3 hours straight, to talk for more than that throughout the off season. I might have a basketball broadcast, a football broadcast, but it's not like baseball where it's every single day, talk for 3 hours straight or so on. So I really do build my vocal stamina at the start of the year. And by a couple of weeks into the year, then my voice gets back to where it should be feeling mid-season form.
So it's interesting. So the last 2 years, my voice has kind of said time out about a week or two into the season. And I think it's where just the stress of it starts to say, like, okay, I was not used to this. You did not use me that much in the off season. I need a breather. This year it happened much earlier. Now, I broadcast some college baseball, which I really enjoy because it gets the rust off. I get ready for the season. I like calling baseball games. So I did 5 straight weeks of college baseball. And it was the 4th week when I started to feel in my voice what normally happens a week or two into the minor league baseball season. And so I was like, all right, it arrived early. That's fine. That means that by the start of the isotope season, my voice should be like mid-season form. That has not been the case. We're now going on 4 weeks. And what I've tried to remind myself is maybe this is a way to not get so over the top early in the season. You know, even the call that we heard at the start of this episode, it's a 2-run homer, cuts the deficit down to 1. It's a 16-15 game. That's a call where maybe in July or August, I would really lean into it. Maybe my fastball, Jesse, would be 101, 102 with my voice. I was still in the low 90s with that one. And it was for a couple of reasons. Number one, I was trying to protect my voice. And number two, the comeback was not complete yet. You need to save something in case they tie it in case they end up winning the game. So I'm trying to use these moments when your voice is not at peak performance to really think about what's the best way to use your voice.
I think there's an important middle ground to find between being low and being hot. And especially in the early part of the year, these aren't the biggest games that are going to be played. As you mentioned, this might not even be the biggest swing of the game. And so you have to understand, like we pot things up on the audio board, we have to understand what is the energy that we can give here while still taking care of ourselves, while leaving some in reserve. So this is good for you that you can say, let's pot it up this much. Right? You can get a batter out with a 92-mile-an-hour fastball if it's well placed. So for you, it's commanding in the lower velocities and keeping that higher velocity for when you need it. Your voice, your vocal health, this is your livelihood. So you really do have to take care of it to the best of your ability.
When I think about just the start of this season, there's other things that I've just get back into the rhythm, right? And especially the first week of the season, there's so many times, Jesse, that I sit there and I go, what am I forgetting to do? Right?
Yes.
There's all of these different things that I'm used to. Like, okay, I've got a pregame show that I need to do. I need to keep track of the live reads. Okay, I got this for the postgame show. I need to remind the board operator about this. There's just like this, and I should just write it down. And I've done that in the past, but I know I'm constantly thinking, what am I forgetting to do at the beginning of the season before it just becomes second nature?
There is so much that needs to happen. And so I'm trying to work my way through it, very much the same as you. But then conversations come up between coworkers, between fans coming up, between the other broadcaster. And there's so much that is good. All of the schmoozing is great. And then it's time to go on the air. And I'm going, oh, I really don't know enough about this opposing starting pitcher as I'd like to, as I would later on in the year, because it very much is that easing in. Especially at the start of the year, there's a lot that changes in between. I would love for when September and the season ends to just continue right away. But the equipment does not stay the same. And we'll go on the road and suddenly things that I remember working are not working the same way. The connections that were not working. I'm getting knocked off my streamer, and that's frustrating. Or the internet suddenly goes down in our ballpark. For whatever reason, our pitch clock is not working at the stadium. There are all of these frustrations that arise in April that you go, well, just got to figure out plan B, plan C, plan D.
It's interesting that you mentioned the audio and just like volumes and knobs. And I feel like, okay, it's a week before the season and I bring all the equipment to the ballpark. I set it up. I test it out. I sound like a wacko because I'm in an empty ballpark and I'm trying to be like a high drive, okay, a high drive, a low. Like I'm trying to do these different variances with my voice in order to get the level set. Okay, do I want the high this way? Do I want the medium this way? The low this way? Trying out all of these things. And I think I've got it. And then the season begins, Jesse, and it's just different when there's a crowd there, when you're in the moment of a big play, when the crowd gets louder and you're trying to make your voice match the crowd. And the levels that you set a week before the season on the mixing board are not what they need to be during the season. And I'm like, I thought I had this figured out. And you're like, no, it's impossible to completely replicate that. So I just feel like every day I'm fine-tuning audio levels to try to find the right mix.
Yes. Okay, this is going to be a weird comparison. Speaking as a dad, there was so much preparation that I did before our child was born. And then he was born, and it was a disaster. Like a great disaster, right? But a total disaster. The season starts similar to that, where I go, oh, I'm prepared. I've taken and I've put into execution all of the lessons that I've learned from all my prior baseball seasons. There's so much that I did wrong then that I'm doing right this year. I've got it. And then the season starts and it's a disaster. Preparations, they don't matter. They go into the toilet when the season begins.
Yeah. And it's interesting. I think that when I was younger, I might have panicked a little bit more. Maybe panic's not the right word, but it might have gotten more frustrating to me. And it's not that I ever want to accept something that is not perfect, but I think I understand that for the most part, the only people who understand that it's not perfect is me. The audience probably, the audience is going to know when you're not off the air. The audience is going to know if you're way over modulated. The audience is going to know if you spend 17 seconds between pitches without anything to say, like the obvious ones. But the ones that are not so obvious, the ones that are subtle, most of the audience is not going to know that. And especially with this, crafting the call, we both take this very seriously. That's why we started this, because we really want to get into the granular details of what can make a C broadcast a B broadcast, what can make a B broadcast an A, and what can make an A an A plus. And so we're striving for perfection. But at the same time, I feel like I don't want to go crazy worrying about every broadcast being an A plus because you can't, right? Sometimes it's just understanding this is what I've got based on my equipment, based on the internet, based on the type of game that is happening. And so I'm just going to do the best with what I've got instead of trying to force something to be something that it can't be no matter what.
It parallels the players. A pitcher should not peak with velocity and stuff in April. You want to take that appearance and take steps forward from there. You study your video, you figure things out. And then by mid-season, that's when you really want to have ramped up to your best effectiveness. And I think we're similar to that. We can take the highlight that we showed at the start with me calling a diving catch in the outfield. Well, I was late in understanding the outfield is deep. They're playing no doubles defense. So this line drive gets sent out there and I'm going, boy, that right fielder is deep. Can he get there? He does. So now I need to understand next time, look where the fielders are positioned. I'm listening back to my voice and I'm saying, is this the proper excitement level? Did I hit that? I'm listening back to it going, okay, there's nasality there. What can I do to help make sure that my voice is clear the next time and coming straight through? Or am I just clogged up because of allergies? All of those different things that I can listen back and watch back and go, okay, the next time that a similar play like this happens, I can do a couple of things differently that would make the call come out better.
I can tell you one thing that I've really focused on this year, and it's based on this series, and that is not looking down to who is playing second base or center field. We talked about this with triple plays and inside the park home runs and the importance of just having the fielders memorized. And game one of a series against an opponent, not going to lie, it's tough to have it memorized. I'm going to look down every once in a while. Game two, I'm still going to be looking down because in the minor leagues, everybody has to play every position. And so it's really hard to memorize. But my goal with the Isotopes when they're in the field is to never look down for your cheat sheet of who's playing shortstop today, of who's playing third base. I should know, I should have it memorized. And here's the thing, Jesse, I know what our guys look like. I don't have to look down. It's more just the habit. A ball gets hit to the left center field gap and you quickly peek down or wherever it is that you keep your defensive alignment to see who's out there. And it's like, no, I don't have to do that. I know our guys. Or I'll even take a few moments during a commercial break and just remind myself. I'll just look out and I'll just point and just remind myself, this is who is out there so that I don't have to look down. And even if it's just that, I think that I'm better because of the way that we've talked through these different plays and how you can get caught if you don't do it a certain way.
That's a really important observation, once again, with the start of the season, because I don't know the opposition yet. And so there are players whose pronunciations of their names I'm still needing to emphasize. Okay, I think it's Theron Liranzo. And if he's going to be involved, I need to be able to get at Liranzo in a hurry. I need to understand who's where. And over the course of a 6-game series, I'm going to figure out who's who and what guys are good at. But yes, at the start of the year, there are so many pitchers that are getting used, shuttled in and out as guys get work. And it very much is, okay, looking around the field, who's warming up in the pen, who's where, just getting the familiarity with it. That way, if the ball is put in play, I can immediately go, all right, I know who that is. Because yes, it really does come back to watching the field, to the initial observation about calling a baseball game where you're just boiling it down to the essence of what is there before you. That is the great place to start. But when you look away, and I'm making sure I've got 60 seconds to post on Twitter about the 3 runs that were scored last inning, I've got this amount of time to make sure that this commercial is rolling. I need to run to the control room to let them know that the button has been pressed and the PA announcer's voice is right now over our broadcasters on MILB TV. All of those things that we're running around just to try to check in with. Oh, you guys have brought in a new pitcher into the game. He's not on the roster. Who is this guy? That's all the chaos that ensues. It's been such a great rule of thumb to say, yes, I know, but look at the field. Watch the field. Get to know everyone from the field.
This is supposed to be a mini episode, so we should wrap it up quickly. But there's just something that happened in the game yesterday, for whatever day that is that we're recording this, that I wanted to share with you, because it's something that has never happened before for me. It's a new rule. I learned something, and I want to pass it along to you and anybody else who is listening. So here's the situation. We had a runner at first base. Name is Greg Jones. Pitch is delivered. It's a called strike. He's stealing second base. The call at second base is safe. And then the umpire starts waving the runner from second back to first. And I'm going, what is going on? And then he waves the runner back to second base. This is what happened. The second baseman was positioned in an area that he is no longer allowed to be in. He had 1 foot on the third base side of second base. So that is a fielder's balk, not a pitcher's balk. It is a fielder's balk because he was not aligned in the position. So the rule is, it is a ball. And so you wipe out the stolen base because it's a ball. But the offense has the option of taking the result of the play. The result of the play was a stolen base and a called strike. And so the Isotopes manager had a decision to make. Do I want a runner at first base and the count to be 3-0? Or do I want a runner at second base and the count to be 2 balls and 1 strike? And he took the obvious. He wanted the stolen base. But there was a lot of confusion that was going on in the press box, with me in the broadcast booth, in the stands. What is going on? This looked like a stolen base. He's being put back to first. Was there a balk? Was somebody throwing before they weren't supposed to throw? No, it was a fielder's balk for being on the wrong side of second base. And the offense took the option of accepting the play. And now I've learned something new, Jesse, because you never know what you're going to see at the ballpark.
All right, let me get up on my soapbox. This is why umpires need to be mic'd in the minor leagues.
And they're supposed to be mic'd this year. They are mic'd at AAA. They have a mic and it wasn't used.
He was like, no, you guys get it. You guys get it. No, you need to be like, offense declines, or we've accepted 3 balls and no strikes. Oh man, because this is great. This is the NFL equivalent of, look, he was offside. However, they've decided to accept the result of the play. First down. That's fantastic. And I'm immediately going to go in and talk with my coaching staff. Now I hope to be prepared if and when I see this happen.
The only reason why I even knew what happened is that at the AAA level, the umpires have an earpiece and they are connected to an individual in the press box so that they can communicate for the automatic ball strike system and also for the challenge system. And so the home plate umpire relayed that to the press box, which is the only reason why I knew, or else I would have been completely confused and sounding like a total dummy on the air. But he should have said it to the crowd, and I need to find out if he's supposed to, or whether he forgot, or whether I don't know what the situation is, but I wish he would have announced it to the crowd so that we all would have known, not just those of us in the press box.
You go into the umpire's room, you check in, the umpire's like, it's April. I forgot. Next time.
Right.
Okay, let me wrap up. I've got something for you.
Okay.
I've got my Baseball America Scouting Dictionary. This is from years ago from a prospect handbook. So here's my question for you out of nowhere. Do you know what a pie thrower is?
A pie thrower? As in apple pie? P-I-E, apple pie thrower?
P-I-E, pie thrower.
I'm just trying to think. So the answer is no. I'm trying to think about how pie is sweet. It's crusty. It's delicious. I have no idea.
So would you say that this is a positive or a negative when applied to a pitcher?
I think pie is delicious. So I'm going to say that this is positive.
This is negative. So quoting Mike Arbuckle, it is a pitcher who, while throwing a pitch, holds his palm too far under the ball rather than having his fingers on top, as if throwing a pie.
Oh, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. So you tend to leave your pitches up in the zone. The pitches are flattening out, and now you know.
Now we know.
Yeah,
The
you got to get on
more
top
you
of it.
know.
Yeah. Hey, this has been great. I think that it's important to encourage folks who are enjoying these Crafting the Calls to reach out to us and say what topics that you would like us to discuss. It is great to hear feedback from people who are watching and enjoying these. And Josh, this is so much fun to have made and to continue to make more Crafting the Calls with you.
Yeah, absolutely. And the other thing that I would add is if there's a particular just like issue that you're going through early in the season as a broadcaster, or maybe even as a fan, something that you hear and you go, why does the broadcaster say that? Or maybe it's even like a phrase. And that might be a fun episode going forward too. A phrase, a call, a description, something that you're struggling with, whether it's during the game, whether it's between innings, whether it's the preparation. I think that all of those things are fun because even if we're giving advice, I'm learning just as much as I think about it and as I listen to you, Jesse.
Yeah, agreed. Well, for this mini episode that stretched out a little longer than we'd like, hey, thank you.
Let's go get some herbal tea and take care of our voices.
Absolutely. For Josh Suchon, I'm Jesse Goldberg-Strassler. This is Crafting the Call.